Okay, let's finish up one more definition. It's really a concept with intersections. So generally think of the definition of intersection. It's the set of all points that figures have in common. So if two streets intersect, they intersect at a point. So the one point would be what they have in common. So there's two types of intersections. The intersection of two lines and then the intersection of two planes. So two lines is a little bit easier. You got line number 1, so it's kind of like my street example. Line number 2, and so the intersection is this particular point. Okay, so if I really kind of name these lines, every line needs 2 points. So maybe call that line XY. Let's call this line AB. And then I'll just name this point C. So I would say that point C is the intersection. Let's see here, that point C is the intersection. Okay. Now, planes are a little harder. I'm going to switch to pencil because we have to draw more of a two-dimensional type look. So I'm going to start by drawing a plane that goes like this. And I'm going to erase a little bit in just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to have like a plane here, and I'm going to try to draw a plane like vertically coming through it. So I'm going to go like this. A little longer. So then to make it a little bit better, and if you're a really good artist and you can do shading, go ahead and do that. I'm not so good at that. So I'm going to make this a dashed line back here, so that this is a hidden element. And so then I think that's all that needs to be dashed because this is going to come through here in the front. So I'm going to call this, let's just name the plane in the corner. Let's just name this plane A and plane B. So they're intersecting not at one point, but they're going to intersect at all of the points in this area right here. So I'm going to draw a line coming through here. Okay, I'm going to maybe call that line N. So all of these points here, and remember these planes don't stop. They will continue out in all directions. So it's going to pick up everything on this line as it expands out. So two lines are going to intersect in this one point, but two planes are going to intersect in a complete line. So I'm going to say here line N is the intersection. And so geometry is all about rules and definitions. So some more basic rules are called postulates. So these are two early postulates. They're more basic ideas. This one you probably could have come up with on your own. How do two lines intersect? Well, the only thing they have in common is one point. Well, that's one of our first postulates. Two planes intersect in a line, that's another postulate. Okay, let's run through some examples here, and this whole first section is about getting you to understand how to name things like this and having the right notation. Okay, let's name 4 coplanar points. So I want to name 4 points that are on the same plane. So when I see this here, I kind of see like this plane right here, and then I actually have triangular planes here. Okay, so I got front, back, side to side, and the bottom. Now the triangular planes, A, E, and B are on one plane, but I need 4. So the only plane that has 4 points would be this bottom plane. So I'm just going to separate them with a comma. I'm just going to say, I guess I'll just say A, comma, B, comma, C, comma, D. Okay, and that would be okay to write it out like that. Or you could write point A, point B, and so forth. Okay, name 3 lines. So I'm going to stick with the ones with the arrowheads on it. So E, anything containing E, really. E down to C is a line. E down to B, EA, or ED. You really could take any 3 of those 4. So I'm just going to go with EC. Now remember, I could call that CE, and I've named the same line. I'll go with EB, and then I'll just say EA. Okay, Okay, but really there is another one that would work. Okay, name a line that passes through 2 points. Well, I have one option here. So X and Y are my 2 points. So this question's about, can you properly name the line with the right notation? So one way to name it, I could do XY. Make sure you put a small line symbol above it. Remember, you could switch around the Y and the X, and so we could say YX with the line symbol. And then lastly on this page, name a plane that contains 3 non-collinear points. I want to name a plane that contains 3 points that are not on one line. So I've got this plane right here, and so I have GH, okay, with line N. So when I name this plane, I have several options. I could name it plane R, okay, because it has this little script R in the corner. Or I could name it with the points on the plane. So G, E, and F are non-collinear. So any ordering of, G, H, and F, any ordering of those letters would work. Or I could say plane G, H, and F. And you don't want a comma, you just want to write them next to each other. Any order is fine on that as well. N is not a point. That is the name of this line. Now this line is coming, kind of envision it coming from the top and exiting out the bottom. All right, so it's in more of a 3-dimensional look. Okay, let's go on. Okay, let's do some sketching here. So we are going to sketch 2 lines that intersect at exactly 1 point. Okay, so draw 1 line. I can draw maybe another line, and make sure you put arrows on the end of it. Here's my intersection point. Now I always want to name stuff. So you can either put points on your line. Let's go ahead and name it with the letter above the arrowhead. So let's just call this line A. I'm going to call that line B. And then I'm just going to name my intersection point as D. That would work. Okay, so as long as you're naming, there's 3 things to name. You've got 2 lines and the intersection point. Okay, sketch a figure that shows a line that lies in a plane. So here's what I want you to envision. Let's say that this piece of paper is my plane. Okay, here's my paper. So my line to be in it should be on the plane itself. Okay, so if I draw a plane, and like I said, we often represent it with this parallelogram. So I just want my line to be like this. I don't want to show the line coming from the top and exiting out the bottom, because that would not be in the plane. That would be in a different plane. So now I need to name stuff. Let's put a name in the corner. Maybe call that plane R. I either need 2 points to name a line. This time I'll do that. Let's just call this line AB. And that's all we need. Okay, I could have also put a letter above the arrowhead there. Okay. At any point too, you can pause and try on your own, or you can just kind of go with me as I go through it. Sketch a figure that shows 2 lines that intersect in 1 point in a plane, but only one of those lines lies in the plane. Okay, so I want the 2 lines to intersect at 1 point. So the point is in the plane for sure, but both lines aren't in the plane. Only one of them is in the plane. Okay, so I need a line coming from a different direction, either coming from the top going down the bottom or something like that. Okay, so I'm going to draw my plane, and let's draw a line in the plane, and I'll go back and name everything in a little bit. So I need another line to say coming from the top and going through the plane, and I want it to intersect on this line somewhere. So I'm going to have it look like this. I'm going to have this line come down, intersect. So because it's going out the bottom, it's hidden. So I need to have dashed lines to show that it's hidden, and then now I can see it again. Okay, so it's supposed to be showing you've got this plane and you've got this line coming from the top, intersecting, going out the bottom. So I want to name my plane. Let's just call it A. I'm going to name my lines by putting letters by the arrowhead. So I'm going to call this line B and line C. And then this point right here, let's call D. And notice I used a capital letter because we always put capital letters by points. So this is more of a two-dimensional figure. So if you only have one item in a plane and you need another item to intersect it, it's got to come from a different direction and be two-dimensional. Okay, last example here that ties a little bit in with algebra. You are given an equation of a line and a point. Use substitution to determine whether the point is on the line. So if I plug in my variable or my values in for x and y, if it's a solution, if it makes a true equation, then that means it's on the line. So if I look to see, does 8 equal 5 times 1? So 5 times 1 plus 3. Is that true? Well, I've got 5 plus 3 is 8. Okay, so that checks out. So I'm going to say yes on the line. All right. So that just kind of links us back into algebra. Okay, I want you to pause the video and I want you to try these 4 at the bottom. And the goal here is to first be able to answer the question, but use the proper notation and symbols when you do that. So go ahead and pause and work on these examples. Okay, opposite rays have to go exactly in the opposite direction so it really looks like a straight line. So, like this line here could work, but there's no point down here for me to use. So I'm going to have to use this line. So I'm going to name ray CB and CD. CB, CD. Okay, so there are only 2 answers that exist on this example. Name a point on line BC. So on line BC, I have lots of options here. I could name point B, I could name point C, but see how it goes through D? So I could also name point D, okay? So any of the following. Okay, now of course you could name just one of them. So I'm gonna say you could have said point B, point C, or point D. Okay, so just one's fine. The intersection of plane N and plane T. So N is the more vertical plane, T is going back and forth. So remember, the intersection between 2 planes that we wrote has to be a full line. So line BD would work. So you could call it line BC, I could call it line CD or BD. Any of those are going to work as long as it contains those points. Name a plane containing E, D, and B. E, D is right here, and here is B. So E is on this more front and back plane. I think that's a script T, so I'm going to go with that. Okay, one thing that I have at the bottom of my notes that I'd like for you to take advantage of is just a way for you to summarize what we did and jot down any questions you have. So today my notes say, so this is just for your area, this area is just for you. So brief summary on what you did. And then this area, feel free to write things like, I mean, sometimes the lesson you understand, there may not be a lot to write. But this is an area, if you have questions on things, you want to come back and read your notes over and be able to answer these. Or maybe ask me these questions. You can make a list, you can write out sentences. This is really for your area right here. Okay, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know.